Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. He secretly dated a gay actor. Right now, we understand the cause of James Cagney's born. On July 17th, James Francis Cagney, New York City, 1899. He was among the most recognizable and adaptable actors of Hollywood's golden age. Having grown up on the rough streets of Caney expanded on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, growing up in an Irish working-class household where adversity and fortitude were daily occurrences. His formative years were formed by the tough, unflappable New York's surroundings, which would subsequently impact the tough, streetwise characters for which he gained notoriety depicting on the big screen. Cagney at first had no desire to become a performer. He was a student at Columbia College. Briefly, and looked into a range of occupations, from boxer to office boy, and even worked as a painter of scenery. His arrival to the entertainment industry was nearly unintentional. He started doing shows in both as a dancer and in vaudeville, where he found his extraordinary aptitude for timing and physical performance. His passion for dancing, particularly tap, would continue to be a lifelong interest and play a crucial part in some of his finest unforgettable scenes on film. He created his debut motion picture in 1930 with Sinner's Vacation. However, that was his breakthrough Public Enemy concert in 1931 that made him a household name. As the vicious criminal Tom Powers, Cagney performed in a way that was both subtle and energetic, creating a new typical of crime dramas. The well-known, he breaks a grapefruit in this scene, into the face of his co-star turned into a lasting impression of early Hollywood and continues to be among the most discussed moments in the history of film. The part strengthened his image on screen as a bald, quick-witted tough guy with an underlying susceptibility. He would hone the character archetype and improve in the upcoming years. All through a popular box in the 1930s and 1940s was Cagney. Office is well known for more than just his roles as a gangster, but also for his exceptional versatility as an actor. Has starred in several popular movies. Angels with Dirty Faces, for example. 1938, Every Morning I Perish, White Heat, 1939, 1949. In Dirty Faces, Angels. His portrayal of Rocky Sullivan, an actor, a criminal who is redeemed, earned a nomination for an Academy Award, and showed his extraordinary capacity to arouse pity, even when performing hardened criminals. His renowned line White Heat elevated it to the top of the world, became as one of the most frequently repeated film, and represented the pinnacles of which he had become well known for as an actor and an emblem of culture. However, Cagney wasn't restricted to crime dramas. He broke typecasting because of his captivating performance of the musical biopic on George M. Cohan Dandy, The Yankee Doodle 1942, displaying his superb dancing and the ability to sing. Cagney took home the Best Actor Academy Award for his performance. The movie gave viewers to observe an alternative aspect of the individual recognized for being rough dudes. With dignity, charm, and limitless vitality, Cagney introduced Cohan's sense of patriotism to lives, making a lasting impact on both critics and viewers. This position emphasized Cagney's adaptability and solidified his standing as one of the most gifted actors in American movies past. Cagney was well known off-screen for his honesty, wisdom, and independent spirit. He was an ardent supporter of rights of actors and played a crucial part in aiding in the creation of the Screen the Actors Guild, opposing the studio heads when few had the courage to do so. In contrast to many of his peers, he was not hesitant to leave when he sensed it, the studio system weakened his creative or personal principles. His conflicts with Warner, the studio he had a relationship with, brothers' lengthy and turbulent partnership, are renowned. He once filed a lawsuit against the studio and won, which was uncommon at the time, claiming his entitlement to artistic freedom and equitable reimbursement. This resolve earned appreciation from both his peers but also from upcoming generations of entertainers who saw him as a pioneer. In spite of his notoriety, Cagney lived a modest and rather secluded life. He was wed to his sweetheart, Frances, Vernon's wife for more than 6 decades, a Hollywood rarity, and the 2 adopted children were born to the couple. Cagney later retired to a peaceful live in Dutchess County, New York, on his farm York, where he delighted in writing and drawing poetry, as well as farming. He made a brief comeback to acting in 1981, with a minor but significant part in Ragtime, demonstrating that his charisma and presence had not diminished with time, when James Cagney was trying out for the Broadway production. Early in the 1920s, pitter-patter had. There is no way to tell that this expert chance would likewise result in a deep and enduring personal relationship. In the course of casting, Frances was a young woman Cagney met, Willard Vernon, just 16 years old aged at the time. Frances is frequently referred to as, friends and family referred to Willie as, and she herself is an aspiring performer. She had been participating in acting and dancing from any young age, and had traveled to New York in order to aspire to work in theater. Despite her youth, she had the maturity and charm that seized Cagney's attention. Right away, pay attention. The two had a discussion throughout the audition process, and that first spark soon grew into a committed romantic partnership. Despite being comparatively, was brief, powerful, and significant. In his early 20s, Cagney discovered Frances is a kinship mate, someone who shared his drive, work ethic, and passion for the arts of performance. They helped one another through the unpredictable show challenges business, and their relationship became closer every month that goes by. In 1922, just a few years following their first encounter, James Francis Willard Vernon and Cagney were married. Their nuptials served as the commencement of a union that might endure for more than 60 years, which is uncommon in Hollywood and the theater industry, where long-term partnerships were frequently challenging to keep up. Even so, they never having children of their own, James and Frances decided to increase their family size by way of adoption. After years, in 1939, of establishing a prosperous film career, the son that Cagney and his spouse adopted is James Cagney Jr. was their name. The pair put their passion and affection into providing their youngster with a steady and encouraging home atmosphere in spite of the pressures of Cagney's rising stardom. Later on, they also adopted a daughter. They called her Kathleen Cagney, lovingly referred to as Casey. Both children were brought up apart from as much attention as they can, with their parents' efforts to protect their children from the demands of being a star. The Cagneys felt firmly that it was important to modesty, education, and family values still alive, and they ingrained these values in their kids. Cagney, despite his on-screen tough guy character, was regarded in private life as a profoundly loving father and spouse. Francis was acknowledged as the stabilizing influence in his life, the individual who, in the middle of the mayhem, kept him grounded of Hollywood. Their union was founded on loyalty, respect for one another, and shared goal. Francis was also quite engaged in overseeing some facets of his behind-the-scenes career, and Cagney often praised her intellect and effect in assisting and directing his professional decisions. Collectively, they created a solid family in addition to enduring heritage that went beyond the screen, which mirrored the values of devotion, love, and resilience. Cagney James, renowned for his delivery of machine guns, explosive energy, and remarkable performances in vintage movies such as The Public Enemy and Dandy. The Yankee Doodle was one of Hollywood's most famous individuals, behind tap dance and the strongman persona. In addition to his boldness, Cagney was a strongly private person, protecting his private life with the same perseverance utilized on screen to repel gangsters. However, as time went on and social taboos have decreased, fresh information has surfaced. They imply there might have been additional Cagney's tale that the general world was never aware of, especially in relation to his connection to another movie legend, Humphrey Bogart. In the 30s and 40s, the studio structure held a firm hold. Stars needed to stay spotless. Pictures, or at least the picture that studios thought to be the most marketable. If the male celebrity displayed indications of being in a romantic relationship with another man, it was regarded as career suicide. The studios would slander, blacklist, or force actors to get married in order to keep the appearance of a heterosexual home bliss. That atmosphere of terror and dominance made a lot of performers keep quiet. Cagney Bogart also appeared in the Ruff and Warner brothers' early days of tumbling, where they frequently ended themselves in the similar circles. As Cagney performed the haughty, affable mobster with grit from the working class, Bogart's slow burn and his brewing rage made him the ideal foil. Their chemistry on screen was off-screen and indisputable. The two had a complex friendship, one that, based on certain insiders and biographers, might have delved further than who was brave enough to say it aloud. Accounts from a few insiders in Hollywood have long alluded to an exceptionally near connection between Bogart and Cagney. They were often observed in each other's presence, having late-night rides and quiet dinners together along Mulholland, as well as personal days at isolated mountain cottages or by-the-sea hiding places. Despite the fact that both actors were Cagney's public marriage to Frances Bogart and Vernon for more than 60 years, to a number of actresses prior to settling alongside Lauren Beale. Some people think these, at least in part, unions were strategic. Facade. That provided deeper protection facts. A former Warner Brothers industrial worker, in a fictitious published interview, detailed an instance of unprotected closeness between the two performers on the set. They believed that nobody was searching. There was nothing obvious about it, just Jimmy's gaze on Bogey, as if he saw the entire universe in that moment. In the event that a romantic relationship between Bogart and Cagney, it needed to be concealed. At the time, the elite in Hollywood faced tremendous pressure to fit in. The tabloids were prowling around all the time, and gossip columnists similar to Luella Parsons and Hedda Hopper had a great deal of power. Just one rumor might quickly ruin a career. In his later on, Cagney was questioned about why he never wrote an autobiography that revealed everything. "A gentleman," was all he said in a demurring tone, fails to convey. Those 5 words have become the focus of incessant conjecture. Some people now understand that comment as a subdued recognition of the secrets he kept in his latter days, not only about other people, but about himself. Why would 2 men with such strength conceal a romantic relationship? The response resides in the historical context. Reputations, careers, and personal, there was a risk to safety. For men such as Cagney and Bogart, who was a man who at the heart of their public identities, the disclosure of a relationship of the same sex would have dissected all they'd constructed. However, there's another explanation that has just lately come into existence. As stated by Cagney's silence, according to one Hollywood historian, might have also resulted from a feeling of devotion and guardianship. Cagney wasn't merely attempting to protect himself. Skin, she said. He was attempting to safeguard Bogey, whose reputation as the toughest person in the world would have given up if the truth was revealed. Cagney was a passionately devoted individual. That's who he was. More than 50 years later, following their passing, sentiments have altered. The world might never find out, yet the whole details of James Cagney's personal life, the hints of his relationship Humphrey Bogart, has assumed new significance. Whether or not their partnership was incredibly platonic, romantic, or anything, it addresses the unsaid in between. LGBTQ+ people's struggles, people in the heyday of Hollywood. Perhaps theirs was a tale of love, formed out of necessity, concealed out of fear, and buried by history. However, in stating it, even hypothetically, we pay tribute to the humanity and depth of 2 guys who give the screen everything, but maybe they held on to their deepest convictions for one another. In 1955, looking for a break from the busy Hollywoods, tempo and need for a return to the tranquility and seclusion of rural James Cagney acquired a 120-acre farm situated in the picturesque village of Stanfordville, tucked away in Dutchess, New York County. He gave this pastoral very farm retreat a blend of his Vernon, the maiden name of Francis's wife, and Cagney, representing both his private and as well as identity. The farm soon turned into not merely a weekend getaway. It transformed into Cagney's beloved refuge, a location where he could enjoy the peaceful rhythms of the countryside, existence away from the harshness of the film company. With time, Cagney created a profound love for the country, as well as his final 120-acre acquisition expanded into a vast estate spanning 750 acres. He gradually enlarged the property, purchasing nearby agricultural parcels and woodland over a number of years. His dedication to maintaining the farm was practical. He was more than just famous proprietor of land, yet a proactive participant in farm life. He was in charge of the upkeep of paddocks, barns, and stone walls, and he enjoyed handling the everyday activities. Cagney became fully involved in the nation, gentleman's way of life, taking pleasure in lengthy strolling, drawing, and painting. An additional among his favorite hobbies. Among the most fervent facets of his agricultural existence were his commitment to equine husbandry. Especially Morgan horses are renowned for their strength, style, and adaptability. The Morganses was born and brought up in Very Farm were given careful attention, and he rode them personally a lot. His affection for, he had been around horses since as a child, and it became more particularly noticeable in his later years. In addition to being a part of his farm's revenue, but also a representation of the lively but disciplined character, Cagney admired the attributes here presented both off-screen and on-screen. In subsequent years, Cagney started to encounter health problems. At first he was identified as having glaucoma, a disorder that impacts the visual nerve and has the ability to cause blindness. As required, he started using eye drops as directed, closely following the medical advice given. But it was ultimately learned that the diagnosis was wrong. His signs and symptoms were genuinely the outcome of undiagnosed diabetes. This discovery was both shocking and annoying because of the delay in appropriate care may have contributed to a portion of the health issues he would encounter over the years to follow. The incorrect diagnosis highlighted geriatric medicine's intricacies. This signaled the start of a slow bodily deterioration. In 1977, when he was canny, had a mild stroke at the age of 78. However, he was not abandoned by the episode. Seriously crippled, it did have a cost, impacted his general well-being, and compelled him to reduce your speed. He slowly retreated even more from the public sphere, favoring the solitude of Very Farm, where he was able to carry on with his quiet routines. In spite of his physical restrictions, he kept his quick wit and inquisitiveness, maintaining communication with close friends, and occasionally, allowing interviews or appearing in public. On March 30th, James Cagney passed away, 86, after a heart attack at the age of 86 assault. His passing signaled the conclusion of an period. He had been among the most recognizable actors from the heyday of Hollywood, well known for his thrilling roles in movies like Yankee White Heat and Doodle Dandy. According to a burial mass in accordance with his Catholic beliefs was hosted at St. Francis in his honor, the Roman Catholic Church of Deal in Manhattan. Those that attended the service were admirers, family and friends, many of who had both been influenced by his work both in his private life and on screen. His old co-star and lifelong friend, at the time, Ronald Reagan, was the President of the United States, gave a sincere nationwide broadcast of the eulogy. Following the event, Cagney was laid to rest in the tranquil old graveyard of Hawthorne, New Hampshire's Gate of Heaven, York, where many famous people are buried. Numbers. He rests in a simple grave, indicative of his grounded character in spite of a life in the spotlight. There, under the big oak's shade and among the silence, he discovered his last piece near the place he cherished and will always be regarded as a legend of the screen in America.